Hey, what's going on, everyone? Back at it with another Pirate101 video. I know it's been a while since I've made some Pirate101 content, so I figured I'd come back with a brand new build I found when I was kind of messing around with some gear. If you can tell by the thumbnail, it's Overwatch 5, and you will be able to be will-based still, so it's pretty nice and convenient. Typically, if you want to be will-based, you'd run like Ready to Spell 5, and you'd be able to have knockback, and it's just very, very convenient. This build will allow you to have the knockback that Overwatch 5 will give you and stay will based. Just going to give you a heads up ahead of time. There are some major limitations of this build compared to Ready 5, so if you already are running Ready 5, I'd recommend just sticking to that. This build's more targeted to players who aren't looking to buy a Hoodoo bundle or just like already have like a new pirate in the works and they want a build that they can run. With all that said, let's hop into the build. Alright, so now let's hop into the gear. So, start off, we're using the Senor hat to give us Overwatch. If you've used Overwatch 5 in the past, Senor hat should look extremely familiar. You need it. It's just the best piece of gear you can get for Overwatch, really. You get it as soon as you get to level 20 when you farm Senor inside of El Toro's mansion. For the weapon, we have two options. Start off, we have Orb Nefarious Death, and it will give you double tap 5, assuming you have a pet made with double tap on it. So you can get double tap 5 with Orb Nefarious Death, and it works out pretty convenient. Alternatively, though, you could use a burn cannon. So Burn's cannon gives you an extra copy of cannonballs, and for those who don't know, how the burn weapons work is they're based on whatever your highest stat is. So if you have more will than you have agility, the burn cannon will work. And because of that, it works pretty much the same way as a hybrid weapon would work. And because you can get the extra copy of cannonballs, it can be really useful for some fights if you need like just extra bombs or you feel like you're not pulling bombs enough. I think the Burns cannon works really nicely. So that's a pretty good weapon. When it comes down to your robe, you're going to be using the Obsidian Captain Blood's jacket for the Will and Flames. Blood Flames, not as good as they used to be since the nerf on them, but they're still pretty solid in a group setting. You're going to have a ton of mojo because you are will based, so they work pretty fine in general. Alright, so next up is the boots. For the boots, we're going to be using the brand new Tartarus boots for Musket. They're going to give you one thing of Overwatch, spell power, weapon power, and accuracy. Pretty good amounts too. If you look at the gear, it's pretty nice on the stats alone. When you compare that to Tide boots, it's just better on the stats aspect. Obviously, Tide is a really, really good power, and if you like are probably soloing, then you'll just use a Tide and then throw on a Overwatch weapon. That's probably a little bit better for solo ability. In that case, you can just throw on Darkmoor Death Splitter, and you'll get your Overwatch back, and then you can just use Tide boots. I think that's better overall than using Tart boots when you're soloing. So that's what I would recommend for this build. Then we're going to move on to your accessory, and we're going to be using the Technomage glasses. These can be gotten from Bishop inside of Marleybone or during the Kane fight. You can farm either or, and you want to just get these glasses because the 6 will they give. Also, a nice benefit is you do get Dispel Magic, and where that works really well is you're doing stuff like Obsidian Dutchman or Sinbad Part 2, Sinbad Part 3 where they have Mojo Burn. You can use Dispel Magic and it will remove the Purge Magic. Or, I'm sorry, not Purge Magic. Head's gonna low, it's spun up. It'll remove the Doom Mojo. So if you're scared about dying to the Doom Mojo, if you use Purge Magic, it'll keep you alive. Works out really nicely because of that. This build really just works phenomenally on Dutchman. Dutchman's one of those really hard fights because you get ambushed. So having knockback works really well, and the fact that you get the Dispel Magic, it really helps specifically for that fight. So it works out really nice for that in consideration. Moving on to your totem, you're going to be using a Dutchman totem. I know, still using those level 5 pieces of gear, but if they work, they work. So with this Dutchman totem, it's giving us base increased will and a sniper shot. It's going to be the best version you can get. The only thing that really matters is the increased base will. The random power you're going to get doesn't matter too much, but Sniper Shot works the best of them. So if you can, I would say go for Sniper Shot. It just makes sense because you can chain off of it. When it comes down to your medallion, we're using the brass medallion will based. So what that means is the will is going to be 14 on that, and it has a whole bunch of good stats, accuracy, and weapon power. Pretty much in the past, you'd use Will Medallion on a lot of builds. With the brand new Cerberus collar out, collar's better, but sadly we're not going to be able to use it because we need to get the Will up on this build because of Tartarus boots. So because of that, we're going to be skipping out on Cerberus collar and instead sticking back to Will-based Medallion. And then hopping into Ring, we're using the Azteca Dinosaur Ring. You get this in the level 5 boss from the little bit of Azteca on Blood Shoals. So with this one, same thing as the totem. We're just using increased base will and a sniper shot. This is the best version you can get. Again, all that matters is the base will. Sniper shot, it's just good to have it so you can chain more, and that's really why I went for it. Going down to your pet, what I would say is like probably your best option for pet is going to be a pet with Burst Fire, Overwatch, Double Tap, and Ready Spell. If you don't want Ready Spell, alternatively you could use Witch Hunter on the pet. Basically, the big choice you have between the two is if you put Ready Spell on the pet, you'll have an additional reduce. So you'll have a 50% accuracy reduce from Ready Spell on top of your Overwatch reduce. That works out really nicely just for trying to stay more careful for more difficult fights. Also, the really big benefit of that is if you have that pet already made, then when you eventually decide to, if you want to try out Raid Spell 5 or anything, the pet can transfer directly over. You won't have to remake the pet, which works out really nicely. And alternatively, if you want to put Witch Hunter on the pet, that also works out really good because you can get Witch Hunter 2 with this build, which is pretty convenient. If you're fighting like anything, just witch doctors, like say Sinbad Part 2, Dutchman, a lot of fights where you might not even think about it, even Sinbad Part 3 for that fact, you can just get Witch Hunter procs off, and it can help just speed up the fight. It's pretty convenient, so I think Witch Hunter is a pretty good option on the pet. Obviously, the powers could be a lot better. This one failed with Brutal Charge and Backstab. It's a fail pet overall, but it works for the purpose I need it to. It gives me the burst, the Overwatch, and the double tap. So that's really what matters. But yeah, that's like basically the gear setup. So now we're going to hop into what comes down to your stats. Alright, so now we're looking at some of the stats you're going to get with this build. Right now, I haven't respec'd my build because primarily I do run Ready to Spell 5, but I'll give suggestions for what you can do if you want to be using this build, what I'd recommend just like swapping in or out. So with all that said, let's hop into it. If you did pick Natural Spooky Origin, does work out really nice, extra 5% spell power right off the rip. When you're going through here, you got your Staffy trained, so you're going to have Spooky 2. I trained the Swash Trainer to get Fast 2. That's personal preference. You don't need it if you're going for Witch Hunter. In that case, you're probably just going to, not take Fast 2, and then you can just go grab Witch Hunter. Granted, I do not have all my training points, I think, on this character, so I'm not too sure. You might be able to get Fast 2 and Witch Hunter trained, which would work out really nicely. Besides that, basic all there. Here's really the meat of the build. We're going to have Ready Spell 2. If you have the pet, you'll have Ready Spell 3. Get the minus 50% accuracy debuff, which is pretty nice. You have your 2 base will increases for an additional 9 will, which works out really nicely. It's required in order to become will base for this, so you do need those 2 pieces of gear. They're extremely important, so you can't skip on that, sadly. You're going to have Quick Draw 3 just from Musket Trainer, nothing too crazy. But, over here, we got Burst 2, we got Double Tap 5, and Overwatch 5. It's just great. There's no denying how great it is. Now hopping on to your powers. Your powers are pretty good. So I'll drag this over because I forgot to, but you're going to have Blood Flames in the first spot. That's what I'd recommend. You want to be able to pull flames as soon as possible because they are so useful. After that, you got Tempest, and then your Cannonballs. And then you have Mortar Shells too. So those are your 3 copies of bombs if you're going for Double Tap 5. Additionally, you're going to have both your Sniper Shots. So after you run out of bombs, or if you don't want to use bombs, you can just start chaining off your Sniper Shot. You have your Dispel Magic, works out really nicely. About the rest of it, doesn't matter a ton, to be honest. So with all that, we're going to hop into our stats so you can take a look at this. So We are just barely, but we are will based. We have 98 will and 96 agility, which allows us to get all the scratch buffs. And for those who don't know what will based actually means, I'll give a quick breakdown. So whenever you look at your powers and whatnot, you'll see that they have a little spell icon down there. It'll say spell power on it. And what that means is that it's buffed by mojo. So whenever you have, like, say, your spell power, you have Old Scratch, who gives you mojo buffs, and what that does is increase your spell power. So when you're will based, no way, bro. Oh man, back where we left off, shout out to Senor Spicy, the homeboy. Unintentional reference to one of his videos, but gonna hop back into explaining the gear. So we're just barely will based, and when I was talking about that last, to be will based, you get your mojo, you get mojo off scratch, and what that allows you to do is when you're in a group setting where there's multiple other scratches on the team, Scratch won't buff you normally when you're agility based. He only gives you the mojo because he's standing directly next to you. But in a group, when you have, 3 other people with you, if you're all bringing Old Scratch and you're all using mojo buff, you'll be able to get every single Scratch's mojo buff, which is going to make your bombs do an insane amount of damage. Your blood flames, insane amount of damage. And that's really where will base became so useful, is because allowing us to have that huge amount of damage, it just is amazing. There's just no denying how useful it is. So that's why, like, will based is really sought after. And for a long time, you could get Overwatch 5, but you would lose your will based or something of the sort. So Overwatch 5 kind of like didn't feel too great to use in a group. But with this, now with the brand new Tartarus update, you're actually able to get it. So that's an amazing feature in my opinion. Something I didn't even really think about, but I was just messing around looking at some gear, and I realized I was able to get Overwatch 5 and keep will base. So that's pretty fun. When you look at our weapon power and all that, it's actually really nice too, because the gear, we got 301 weapon power, we got almost 300 spell power. The boots of the Underworld, they do give us a bonus 8, plus you have naturally spooky, so it's really nice. The accuracy is even really good too, because you have Brass Medallion giving you accuracy and the boots giving you accuracy. So you're pretty likely to actually hit your Overwatch and hit a knockback, which I'm a pretty big fan of, I think having good base accuracy matters a lot, especially since we're compensating for the Patch Saint title loss and we're compensating for Ring of Hercules loss. It's basically about the same. You're not losing too much, accuracy as you would. So I think that's a really nice look at it. Your health, whatever, nothing too crazy. Besides that, that's basically the build. Let me guys know what you think. Probably won't be using this too much on my main account, but I will be probably using it on my second account. I'm working on a musket on that account. I'm trying to just make it more like PvE focused, for like guides and whatnot. So that's the hope. I've realized that this build would be really useful for that account, so I figured I'd put it out there for you guys who want to check it out. I hope you guys all enjoyed. I have been streaming a little bit again back on Twitch, twitch.tv/randomlocust if you want to check that out. Come by. I might be going live sometime. Anyway, join the Discord if you haven't already, and consider leaving a like and a follow. Or, sorry, follow. I'm saying too much about Twitch. Got it all in my head. Consider dropping a sub on the YouTube if you enjoyed the video. Anyway, guys, without further ado, take care.